Have you ever felt like no matter how much effort you put into a relationship or situation, the more you try, the less you're appreciated? It's an exhausting cycle, pouring yourself into others, only to be met with indifference or even taken for granted. But what if the secret to being seen, valued, and even pursued wasn't about doing more, but about doing less? Let me challenge the conventional wisdom for a moment. Society tells us to fight for attention, to speak up louder, to chase what we want relentlessly. But here's the harsh truth. Overexertion often backfires. When you're always available, always giving, and always trying to prove your worth, something strange happens. People stop noticing you. They stop appreciating what you bring to the table. And instead of strengthening connections, your constant presence weakens them. What if the solution was counterintuitive? What if the most powerful thing you could do was step back, stay silent, and create space for others to miss you? Imagine how different your relationships would feel if, instead of chasing, you let them come to you. This idea may sound radical, even uncomfortable. After all, it requires you to let go of control, to embrace stillness, and to trust in your inherent value. But let me assure you, it's transformative. In this video, we're diving deep into a philosophy that has the potential to change not only how others treat you, but how you see yourself. We'll explore why stepping back isn't an act of surrender, but of strength. We'll uncover the hidden power of silence and how it can shift the dynamics of any relationship. And most importantly, we'll reveal why absence truly makes the heart grow fonder. So stay with me. Don't click away, because what you're about to learn could shift the way you approach life, love, and connection forever. By the end of this video, you'll not only understand the principles of stepping back and staying silent, you'll feel empowered to watch them come running. 1. The power of stepping back. Why is it so hard to step back? Why do we instinctively cling to situations or people when we feel the fear of losing them? The answer lies in our deeply rooted need for control. We believe that by holding on tightly, we can shape outcomes, maintain connections, and secure our place in someone's life. But let's face it, how often does this approach truly work? Think about the relationships in your life where you've tried too hard. Did your efforts draw people closer, or did they seem to drift further away? This isn't coincidence. When you're constantly present, constantly available, and constantly giving, you unintentionally send a message. You don't need to work for my attention, because I'll always be here. This is where stepping back becomes essential. It's not about playing games or manipulating others. It's about reclaiming your energy and recognizing that you don't need to chase after anyone to prove your worth. Stepping back isn't an act of defeat, it's an act of self-respect. Imagine this scenario. You've been texting someone frequently, initiating conversations, and trying to maintain a connection. But the responses are slow, short, or indifferent. You start to feel the sting of being ignored. What do? The instinct might be to try harder, to send another message, to remind them of your presence. But let me ask you this, does that approach serve you? Or does it leave you feeling even more powerless? Now, picture a different response. Instead of pushing, you pull back. Instead of over-explaining your value, you let your absence speak for itself. You redirect your energy toward yourself, toward your passions, your growth, your peace. What happens next? You create a void. And in that void, something remarkable occurs. Others start to notice. Stepping back works because it interrupts the cycle of over-availability. When you're always there, your presence blends into the background. But when you step back, you create contrast. You remind people of what life feels like without you in it. And this is a powerful reminder, one that often stirs emotions they didn't even realize were there. This isn't just theory, it's supported by psychology. Human beings are wired to value what they fear losing. When you step back, you activate this principle. You give others the opportunity to reflect on your absence and, in doing so, you remind them of your value. But stepping back isn't easy. It requires patience, courage, and a willingness to sit with discomfort. You may find yourself battling thoughts like, what if they don't notice? What if they don't care? But here's the truth. If someone doesn't notice your absence, it speaks volumes about their capacity to appreciate your presence. As you step back, it's vital to focus on yourself. Use this time to reconnect with who you are outside of any relationship or situation. What brings you joy? What inspires you? How can you grow stronger, wiser, and more fulfilled on your own? When you invest in yourself, you radiate a confidence and independence that draws others in naturally. And here's a question for you to consider. If stepping back feels so powerful, why don't more people do it? Could it be that we've been conditioned to equate effort with success? That we've been taught to believe that love and connection require constant action? What if we flipped that script? What if instead of effort, we focused on presence and allowed our absence to speak volumes when needed? As you ponder these questions, let me leave you with a thought. Stepping back isn't about creating distance for the sake of it. It's about creating space for clarity, for respect, and for appreciation to grow. It's about trusting that your worth doesn't depend on how much you give, but on who you are. So take that step, reclaim your power, and watch how the world shifts when you give yourself permission to let go. Because when you step back, something incredible happens. You not only rediscover your own strength, but you open the door for others to come running, not out of obligation, but out of genuine desire. Stay tuned for the next part, where we'll explore the transformative power of silence and why saying nothing can sometimes speak louder than words. 2. Silence as a tool, not a weakness. When was the last time you truly embraced silence? Not the silence of awkward pauses or unanswered questions, but the kind of intentional stillness that exudes confidence and power. Let's face it, silence makes most people uncomfortable. In a world that constantly demands noise, whether it's through words, actions, or endless digital chatter, choosing silence feels almost rebellious. But what if I told you that silence is one of the most underrated tools you possess? Think about it. How often do we rush to fill the void in conversations, to explain ourselves, to justify our choices? And yet, by doing so, we dilute the strength of our words and actions. Here's a question for you to ponder. When you say less, what message does that send? Silence, when used intentionally, can communicate more than 1,000 words ever could. Let me take you into a scenario. Imagine you're in a heated discussion with someone, maybe a partner, a colleague, or even a friend. They're speaking with passion, possibly even frustration, expecting you to respond in kind. Now, instead of jumping into the fray with a defensive retort or an emotional outburst, you pause. You look at them calmly, you stay silent, and you let their words hang in the air. What happens next? More often than not, silence creates a shift. It forces the other person to reflect on what they just said. It disarms them, because silence is unexpected. It's the absence of immediate reaction. And in that moment, the power dynamic changes. By refusing to engage impulsively, you position yourself as composed, thoughtful, and self-assured. Here's where the magic happens. Silence isn't just about withholding words. It's about creating space for others to lean in. When you stop chasing the conversation, you make room for others to step forward. This applies not only in conflict, but in any interaction. Consider this. How much stronger would your presence feel if you learned to speak only when your words carried weight? Silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Silence is the ultimate expression of this principle. It's a way of reminding yourself that you don't need to react to everything. Not every battle needs to be fought. Not every comment needs a response. But let's go deeper. Why does silence work so effectively in relationships? The answer lies in human psychology. We are wired to seek resolution. When someone goes silent, it creates a gap, a question that begs an answer. People want to know what you're thinking, why you're not speaking, and what they can do to break the stillness. Silence piques curiosity and invites reflection. And here's the fascinating part. When you use silence wisely, people often fill the void with their own thoughts, feelings, and realizations. In relationships, this can be incredibly powerful. Instead of trying to convince someone of your worth or argue your point, you let them arrive at their own conclusions. Silence gives them the space to see what's been in front of them all along. But silence requires discipline. It's tempting to fill the space, to explain yourself, to defend your actions. The next time you feel that urge, ask yourself this: what am I trying to prove? And to whom? Often the answer reveals that our need to speak stems from insecurity, not necessity. Now, let me ask you this: when was the last time you truly let your silence speak for itself? When did you choose to say nothing, not out of fear or avoidance, but out of strength? Silence isn't just about relationships with others, it's about your relationship with yourself. It's about learning to sit with your thoughts, your emotions, your doubts. It's about finding peace in stillness and recognizing that your worth isn't tied to how much noise you make. This is where the real transformation begins. Take a moment to reflect. Are you comfortable with silence, or does it make you uneasy? Do you see it as a weakness, or can you begin to embrace it as a tool? The way you answer these questions will reveal a lot about your relationship with yourself. And if you're wondering how to start using silence more intentionally, here's a challenge for you. The next time you're in a conversation, whether it's a disagreement, a negotiation, or even a casual chat, practice pausing. Don't rush to respond. Don't feel the need to fill every moment with words. Instead, let your silence hold space. Watch how the dynamics shift, how the energy changes, and how others respond. Let me be clear, silence isn't about manipulation. It's about presence. It's about showing that you're so secure in yourself that you don't need to prove your worth with words. It's about understanding that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced the power of silence? Maybe you've tried it and seen incredible results, or maybe you're just starting to embrace this idea. Let me know in the comments by typing number 1 if this resonates with you. And while you're here, don't forget to like this video if you're finding it valuable so far. Your support means the world to me and helps this community grow. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on insights like this. Trust me, what we're building together is something you don't want to miss. Remember, silence isn't the absence of power, it's the presence of wisdom. And when you learn to harness it, you'll see how much more you can say by saying less. Stay tuned, because in the next section, we'll explore the fascinating psychology of absence and why stepping away often brings people closer. 3. The psychology of absence. Have you ever noticed how much more you appreciate something once it's gone? A favorite dish you can't find, a song that suddenly disappears from your playlist, or even the presence of someone who used to be a constant in your life. This is no accident. It's a fundamental part of human psychology. We value what we fear losing, and we often don't realize the depth of our appreciation until something or someone is no longer there. Absence has a way of magnifying importance, a phenomenon deeply rooted in how our brains process value. When something is constantly available, it blends into the fabric of our daily lives. It becomes background noise taken for granted simply because it's always there. But when that thing or person steps back, the dynamic changes entirely. Let's explore why this happens. One explanation lies in a concept called the scarcity effect. Humans instinctively value things that are rare or hard to obtain. When something becomes less accessible, whether it's a resource, an opportunity, or a person, it triggers a subconscious response. We assign it greater value. This isn't just about material goods, it applies to relationships, attention, and even love. Now, let's apply this to the idea of stepping away. When you're constantly present in someone's life, your value becomes predictable. Your attention, your effort, your care, it's all there day after day, moment after moment. But what happens when you create a void? Suddenly, the things you brought to the table, the kindness, the support, the energy, aren't there anymore. That absence creates contrast, and in that contrast, your value becomes clearer. But let's not confuse this with manipulation. The purpose of stepping back isn't to play games or to make someone miss you out of spite. It's about creating space for genuine recognition. It's about allowing others to see and feel your worth in a way they may have overlooked when you were always there. I think about it like a painting. If you've ever visited an art gallery, you'll notice that the most powerful pieces are often displayed with plenty of space around them. That negative space isn't accidental, it's intentional. It draws the eye to the artwork, emphasizing its beauty and detail. Your presence in someone's life is no different. When you're constantly filling every moment, your presence becomes harder to distinguish. But when you step back, you create a frame, a contrast that highlights everything you bring to the relationship. Here's a question for you. Who in your life would notice if you weren't there tomorrow? And more importantly, how would they feel? Absence forces people to reflect on what they might lose. It prompts questions like, what does this person mean to me? How would my life change without them? And here's the key. Those realizations are far more powerful when they come from within, not from constant reminders or demands for attention. Let me share a simple example. Imagine you've been the one in a friendship or relationship who always initiates plans, always checks in, always makes an effort. Over time, you might notice that the other person becomes less responsive, less appreciative, and perhaps even less engaged. You feel the sting of their indifference and wonder what more you could do to bridge the gap. But what if, instead of doing more, you did less? What if you stopped initiating and allowed the space to speak for itself? This isn't about punishing the other person. It's about observing their reaction. If they truly value you, that void you've created will spur them into action. They'll reach out, they'll reflect, and they'll begin to realize what your presence truly means. And if they don't, well, that's a revelation in itself. Absence reveals not only how others feel about you, but also how much they're willing to invest in the connection. The beauty of absence is that it works in both directions. While others are reflecting on your value, you're also gaining clarity. You start to see which relationships are balanced and reciprocal, and which ones may have been sustained by your one-sided effort. But stepping back isn't always easy. It requires patience, restraint, and a willingness to sit with uncertainty. You might find yourself battling the urge to fill the void, to reach out, to explain yourself. That's normal, it's human. But here's the thing. The discomfort you feel in those moments is a sign that you're growing. Absence also teaches you to value yourself. It's a reminder that you don't need to cling to anyone or anything to prove your worth. By stepping back, you're affirming that your presence is a gift, not something to be begged for or taken lightly. And here's something else to consider. Absence isn't just about physical distance. It can also mean emotional or mental distance. Sometimes, stepping back is as simple as setting boundaries, saying no when you need to, or refraining from over-explaining yourself. It's about creating enough space for others to step forward if they choose to. But let's be clear, not everyone will rise to the occasion. Some people may not notice your absence, and that can be painful. But here's the truth. If someone doesn't appreciate your presence, they probably won't feel the weight of your absence either. And that's okay, because stepping back isn't about changing others, it's about understanding yourself. Now let's take a moment to reflect. Who in your life has stepped back from you, and how did it make you feel? Did it create a longing, a curiosity, or a newfound appreciation? And on the flip side, how often have you allowed yourself the space to step away, to let others come to you? Absence is a mirror. It shows us what's real and what isn't. It reveals who truly values us and who doesn't. And most importantly, it reminds us that our worth isn't dependent on anyone else's recognition. So the next time you're tempted to chase after someone's attention or fill every gap with your effort, pause. Ask yourself, what would happen if I stepped back? You might be surprised by the answer. Stay tuned for the next section, where we'll explore how shifting focus to yourself can amplify your strength, confidence, and magnetism. Because when you redirect your energy inward, the world starts to notice, and they come running. 4. Shifting focus to yourself. What happens when you stop pouring all your energy into others and instead turn it inward? Imagine what your life could look like if you redirected your focus, if the time, effort, and emotional labor you've spent on people who don't reciprocate were used to build yourself up instead. The truth is, when you shift your focus inward, you become a magnet for the very attention, respect, and connection you've been seeking. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you truly prioritized yourself? Not in a fleeting, surface-level way, but deeply and intentionally. For many of us, the idea of putting ourselves first feels foreign, even selfish. We've been conditioned to believe that self-sacrifice is the ultimate virtue, especially in relationships. But here's the problem. If you spend all your energy trying to prove your worth to others, you lose touch with your own. Think of your energy like a flame. When you constantly give to others without taking time to replenish yourself, that flame begins to dim. You become exhausted, drained, and ironically, less capable of giving the very things you value: love, support, and presence. Shifting focus to yourself isn't about abandoning others. It's about ensuring that your flame burns brightly enough to light your own path and the paths of those who truly deserve your energy. So how do you start this shift? The first step is recognizing that your value doesn't come from external validation. It comes from within. This is where personal growth and self-investment become crucial. Ask yourself, what areas of my life have I neglected in my pursuit of connection? Is it your health, your passions, your career, or perhaps your sense of peace and mental clarity? The beauty of focusing on yourself is that it creates a ripple effect. When you pour energy into your growth, you naturally radiate confidence, independence, and self-respect. And here's the kicker. People are drawn to that. They're drawn to the person who doesn't need them to feel whole, but chooses to share their life anyway. Let's break this down further. One of the most empowering ways to shift focus to yourself is by pursuing your passions. What lights you up? What makes you feel alive, energized, and fulfilled? For some, it might be diving into a creative hobby, like painting, writing, or music. For others, it could mean exploring fitness, travel, or learning a new skill. The key is to find something that's yours, something that excites you and reminds you of your uniqueness. And here's a secret. When you're deeply engaged in something you love, you stop worrying about who's paying attention to you. Your focus shifts from external approval to internal joy. This not only makes you happier, but also makes you more attractive to others. There's a magnetic quality to someone who is passionately living their life. But shifting focus to yourself isn't just about hobbies or achievements. It's also about nurturing your emotional and mental well-being. Take a moment to reflect. How often do you check in with yourself? How often do you sit with your thoughts, your feelings, and your needs? Journaling is a powerful tool for this. By writing down your thoughts, you gain clarity about what truly matters to you. You might discover patterns, ways you've been neglecting yourself or overextending for others. Journaling helps you reconnect with your inner voice, the one that often gets drowned out by the noise of external demands. Another vital part of this process is setting boundaries. Boundaries are a form of self-respect. They communicate to the world and to yourself that your time, energy, and well-being are valuable. When you set boundaries, you're not being selfish, you're creating space for the right people and opportunities to enter your life. Let me give you an example. Imagine you have a friend who constantly takes but rarely gives. They call you only when they need something, and their lack of reciprocity leaves you feeling drained. In the past, you might have tolerated this because you didn't want to risk losing the connection. But now, as you focus on yourself, you decide to set a boundary. You let them know that while you care for them, your time and energy are limited, and you need to prioritize what serves your well-being. What happens next? One of two things. Either they adjust and begin to respect your boundaries, or they drift away. And while the latter might feel like a loss, it's actually a gain. Why? Because you're making room for relationships that are balanced, supportive, and enriching. Shifting focus to yourself also means celebrating your victories, big and small. Too often we downplay our achievements, waiting for others to validate them. But what if you became your own biggest cheerleader? What if you took the time to acknowledge how far you've come, how much you've grown, and the resilience you've shown? Here's another question for you. What would it look like to truly invest in yourself? Would it mean taking a class, starting therapy, joining a community of like-minded individuals, or simply dedicating time each day to rest and recharge? The answer will be different for everyone, but the principle remains the same. When you prioritize your growth, you elevate every aspect of your life. And here's the most fascinating part. As you shift focus to yourself, people will notice. They'll see the way you carry yourself, the way you light up when you talk about your passions, and the way you no longer seek validation from others. This shift creates intrigue and admiration. People are drawn to those who know their worth and aren't afraid to embrace it. But this isn't about attracting others. It's about attracting yourself. It's about looking in the mirror and feeling a deep sense of pride and love for the person staring back. When you reach this point, you realize something profound. You don't need anyone to come running, because you're already running toward the best version of yourself. As you take this journey, remember that it's not a linear path. There will be days when self-doubt creeps in, when the urge to revert to old patterns feels overwhelming. That's okay. Growth isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Each step you take toward yourself is a step away from seeking external approval. And now, I want to invite you to reflect on something. If you were to pour even half the energy you've spent on others into yourself, what could you achieve? How much happier, stronger, and more fulfilled could you be? Let me know in the comments by typing number 1 if this resonates with you. I want to hear your stories, your insights, and your experiences. And while you're here, don't forget to like this video if you found value in what we've explored so far. Your support helps this community grow and allows us to continue sharing these transformative ideas. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next part of this journey. In the next section, we'll dive into the return and explore how to navigate the inevitable moment when they come running back. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. 5. The return. Let them come to you. There's a certain irony in life. The moment you stop chasing something, it often finds its way to you. This isn't magic, it's the natural result of shifting your energy and reclaiming your power. By stepping back and focusing on yourself, you've created space for others to recognize your value. And when they finally come running, it's essential to navigate that moment with intention and clarity. But before we dive into how to handle their return, let's explore why it happens in the first place. What makes someone suddenly realize your worth after you've stepped back? The answer lies in the contrast you've created. When you are constantly present, whether through your attention, effort, or availability, you unintentionally dulled the impact of your presence. But now in your absence, they're faced with a void. They notice what's missing, and for the first time they're forced to confront how much you added to their life. This isn't manipulation, it's human nature. People often don't appreciate something until they have to live without it. Think of a favorite song. When you listen to it on repeat, it starts to lose its spark. But take a break for a while, and when you hear it again, it feels fresh, vibrant, and full of meaning. The same principle applies to relationships and connections. But here's the key. Their return is not the ultimate goal. Your value doesn't hinge on whether or not they come running. Instead, this moment is an opportunity, a chance to reevaluate the relationship, set boundaries, and ensure that the dynamic moving forward is healthy, balanced, and aligned with your worth. Let's start with a fundamental question. What do you want from their return? For many, the initial reaction is excitement or relief. It feels validating to have someone finally recognize your worth. But take a step back and ask yourself if their return aligns with your growth. Have they truly reflected on their behavior? Are they returning out of genuine appreciation, or are they merely reacting to the discomfort of your absence? This distinction is crucial. Some people come back not because they value you, but because they miss the convenience of your presence. They miss the effort you put in, the attention you gave, and the energy you brought. But appreciation without accountability isn't enough. If someone is returning to your life, they should be willing to meet you where you are, not expect you to return to old patterns of overgiving and self-sacrifice. When they come running, the first step is to observe. Don't rush to reestablish the connection or fall back into familiar dynamics. Instead, take the time to evaluate their actions. Are they making an effort to understand your needs and boundaries? Are they demonstrating a willingness to invest in the relationship? Actions speak louder than words, and it's through their actions that you'll see whether they truly value your presence. Now, let's talk about boundaries. When someone returns after you've stepped back, it's essential to set clear expectations. Boundaries aren't about pushing people away, they're about creating a framework for healthy, reciprocal connections. They're a way of saying, this is what I need to feel respected, valued, and supported. For example, if someone who previously took you for granted comes back into your life, you might set a boundary around how much effort you're willing to give. Maybe you decide that you'll no longer be the one always initiating plans or reaching out. Instead, you create space for them to take initiative and show their commitment. Setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable, especially if you're used to prioritizing others' needs over your own. But remember, boundaries are an act of self-respect. They protect your energy and ensure that your relationships are built on mutual appreciation and effort. Another important aspect of their return is patience. Just as it took time for them to recognize your value, it will take time to rebuild trust and balance. Resist the urge to rush the process. Instead, focus on consistency. Are they consistently showing up for you? Are they demonstrating growth and accountability over time? But what happens if they don't meet your expectations? What if their return is fleeting, or if they fall back into old patterns of behavior? This is where your growth becomes your guide. The work you've done to focus on yourself has given you clarity about what you deserve. You've built a foundation of self-respect and self-worth that doesn't depend on anyone else's validation. So if someone's return doesn't align with your needs, you have the strength to walk away. Walking away doesn't mean you're bitter or unforgiving. It simply means that you value yourself enough to prioritize connections that uplift and honor you. And here's the beauty of this process. By letting go of what doesn't serve you, you make room for relationships that do. Now, let's consider another perspective. Not everyone who comes running will be someone you want to reconnect with. Sometimes, stepping back reveals that certain relationships were built on shaky foundations. And while it might be tempting to rekindle those connections out of nostalgia or familiarity, it's worth asking, does this relationship align with who I am now? Growth often means outgrowing certain people. This isn't a failure, it's a natural part of life. The person you're becoming might not fit into the dynamics of an old relationship, and that's okay. Letting go of the past allows you to fully embrace the present and the future. But what about the relationships that do align with your growth? The ones where mutual respect, effort, and appreciation are possible. These are the connections worth nurturing. When someone returns with genuine intention and accountability, it can lead to a deeper, more meaningful bond. To cultivate these relationships, focus on open communication. Share what you've learned about yourself during your time apart, and encourage them to do the same. Discuss your boundaries, your needs, and your hopes for the connection moving forward. This level of transparency creates a foundation of trust and understanding. And don't forget to celebrate the progress you've made. The fact that someone is returning to your life is a testament to your growth and resilience. It's a reminder that by stepping back and staying true to yourself, you've created the conditions for others to see and appreciate your worth. As you navigate their return, keep this mantra in mind. I am worthy of love, respect, and reciprocity. Let this belief guide your decisions and interactions. Whether their return leads to a renewed connection or serves as a closure, know that you've honored yourself by staying grounded in your value. In the end, letting them come to you isn't about control, it's about trust. Trusting that the right people will recognize your worth. Trusting that stepping back doesn't diminish your value but amplifies it. And most importantly, trusting that you are enough, exactly as you are. In the next section, we'll wrap up this journey with an inspiring conclusion, reminding you of the strength you've cultivated and how to continue embodying it in all areas of your life. Here we are, at the end of this journey, reflecting on the profound power that comes from stepping back, staying silent, and letting the world come to you. What have you discovered about yourself in the process? More importantly, what have you realized about your worth and the dynamics of your relationships? The truth is, We've been taught to believe that action, constant, relentless action, is the key to success in every aspect of life, from work to love to friendships. But as we've explored, some of the most transformative outcomes happen not in the doing, but in the being. It's in the stillness, the silence, the space we create that clarity emerges. You've learned that stepping back isn't a sign of weakness. It's a profound declaration of strength. It says to the world, I know my worth, and I'm not afraid to stand still while you figure it out. It demands respect, not by shouting or chasing, but by quietly standing firm in your value. Let's take a moment to reflect on everything this journey has taught us. When you step back, you reclaim your energy. You create a powerful contrast that allows others to truly see you, your impact, your presence, and your significance. Stepping back isn't about manipulation. It's about giving people the opportunity to choose you without your constant prompting. It's about letting them recognize that your absence is more significant than your over-availability. When you stay silent, you harness a tool that speaks louder than words. Silence forces others to reflect, to question, and to come to their own realizations about what you mean to them. And in that silence, you remind yourself that not every situation requires your reaction. Sometimes the greatest power lies in what you choose not to say. And when you shift focus to yourself, everything changes. By investing in your passions, your growth, and your well-being, you become a magnet for the very attention and respect you once sought externally. You learn to validate yourself, and in doing so, you teach others how to treat you. But what happens now? What do you do with this newfound wisdom? First, remember that this journey is ongoing. It's not about reaching a finish line, but about consistently choosing to honor yourself. There will be moments when the old patterns creep back in, when the urge to chase or overextend feels overwhelming. That's okay. Growth isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Second, trust the process. Trust that by stepping back, you're creating space for the right people and opportunities to enter your life. Trust that by staying silent, you're allowing clarity and respect to emerge. Trust that by focusing on yourself, you're building a foundation that will sustain you through any challenge. And finally, embrace the idea that you don't have to control every outcome. The beauty of this approach lies in its simplicity. You show up for yourself and you let others meet you there. If they don't, it's not your loss, it's theirs. Here's a question to carry with you. What would it look like to fully embrace your worth in every area of your life? Whether it's in relationships, work, or your personal growth, what would change if you stopped chasing and started trusting? Let me tell you what happens. You become unshakable. You radiate confidence and self-respect. You attract connections that are built on mutual appreciation, not obligation. And most importantly, you find peace, not in the validation of others, but in the strength of your stillness. Now, as we wrap up, I want to hear from you. If this message resonates with you, let me know by typing number 1 in the comments below. Your thoughts, experiences, and reflections mean so much to this community. And if you found value in this journey, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. When you subscribe, you're not just staying connected, you're joining a movement of people committed to growth, self-respect, and meaningful connection. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an opportunity to grow stronger and wiser together. Thank you for being part of this transformative journey. Remember, your strength doesn't come from chasing or proving. It comes from knowing and trusting your worth. Stay true to yourself and the right people will come running. Until next time, take care and keep shining. You've got this.